Welcome to Get to Know with me, Morgan Williams. I've been in the creative industry for over a decade and meet people in different roles every day. But here's my secret. I don't always know what it is they actually do. So here I am getting to know. Each week, I sit down with industry insiders, learning what it is they actually do all day long. Whether you're trying to break into the industry, feeling a little bit lost, or just plain curious, Get to Know is here to dish out creative career insights and advice. So let's dive right into this episode. This week, I get to know Aleksandra Panyukhina, the Experience Marketing Director at Pixelz. Aleksandra started out in sports but made a conscious decision to move into specifically events marketing. She worked her way up using events as a powerful marketing technique in tech companies, most recently with Pixelz Flow events, which are networking events specifically for those within the e-commerce studio industry. I've now been to 3 of these events, even speaking at one, which is how I first met Aleksandra last year. Today, we talk about the differences between event marketing and events planning, building a community, and burnout. Aleksandra also gives some fantastic managerial tips and even lets slip what she looks for when hiring. If you're looking to get into events marketing or currently working within the e-commerce space, this one's for you. Hi, Aleksandra. Thanks for coming on today. Really nice to have you on. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's good to have you. To start off, I think it'd be really good if you don't mind introducing yourself and what it is exactly that you do.
Sure. I'm Aleksandra. I am Experience Marketing Director at Pixelz. And what I do, and I have been doing it for the past 10 years, is creating experiences, creating events, building communities online and offline in the world of tech, in the tech industry. And for the past 2 years, I've been doing that as a part of the Pixelz team. And my core project for the past 2 years has been Flow.
It's been a really, really good event. And obviously that's how we've met as well. Can we go into a bit more detail? Like, what is Flow? How did that even come about as well?
Sure. So Flow started back in 2020. And that was before myself and quite a few of the team members that, if you attended our events, have met, have been brought on board. So that idea, I take no credit for that. It appeared originated much earlier, and it was an idea of okay, let's do a meetup and even an event for e-commerce studio professionals, because there was pretty much nothing, no place to connect and share ideas and talk about the day-to-day problems, and it was extremely successful. The only thing that it happened on March 5th, 2020, and the world locked down like the day after.
Yeah.
So for the next year and a half, it was a bit problematic to run in-person events. It was obvious that this event, it needs to be in person. You need to have that connection. And the next time that Pixelz restarted it was still before I joined. It was in 2021 in Berlin. There was that little time in between lockdowns when actually some in-person events were possible. Once again, it was a huge success. It was obvious that this is the right idea. And since then, the company just pushed forward. And funny enough, I've been connected with Katrina, our CMO, on LinkedIn for a while. And I saw from the sides, okay, that Flow looks interesting. Interesting audience, the way the team was posting about it. Okay, that's an interesting project. And I was looking for my next career move. And I did message Katrina on LinkedIn saying, that looks very interesting. By any chance, are you looking for someone who has experience to come and take it to the next level? And the answer was yes. 3 weeks later, I joined Pixelz.
Amazing. That's such a good kind of story that you, like, it wasn't through like an ad or an interview process.
No, it was absolutely not.
Just messaging, putting yourself out.
Exactly. And that just speaks volumes, I guess, about the importance of maybe personal branding, but also just sharing about what you work on, what you do, what your interests are, because I knew what Katrina is doing. I knew about Flow, but same way, Katrina knew what I was doing because I've been talking about event marketing and experiences for a few years by that point. And we've just been connected. It felt like we know each other, not closely, but we do know what we stand for. And that was very important.
All right, so let's take it back a little bit then. How did you start out in the industry, and how have you built your personal brand over the years?
I have that very specific start date of July 31st, 2014, because before that I was in sports. I was doing cross-country cycling, and in winter 2014, I decided that I am stopping my sports career, and yes, I'm starting life as an adult. So I'm gonna find a job, move to another city. And I was thinking, okay, but what should I do? I wanted to be very specific about it and very logical. I definitely wanted to work in tech industry because that was booming, and my major at the university was in marketing, and I always was interested in marketing. But also, I was pretty good and was very interested in events. I've been supporting different sports events and organizing, so doing quite a lot around that. So I learned about event marketing. I thought that's a match made in heaven. So this is what I want to do. And unlike many people in that profession, I actually wanted to get in rather than accidentally just falling into that, as some of their people do. Like, someone started as an office manager and was tasked to organize, an office party or a company kickoff or something like that, or a marketer who was doing mostly digital ended up having to organize events. So for me, it was a very kind of structured and planned choice.
Yeah. And what's kind of the difference between events planning and events marketing?
I love that question. At one point for my team at a different company, we did sweatshirts where we had written at the back, not a party planner. Because very often that's what it is mistaken for. And not to in any way minimize the importance and the value that event planner or event planning does. In event marketing, I think, like, I'm a marketer first, and event planning and event manager second. There are many aspects of event management that I don't like and really want to delegate. But what I see events, it's as a channel. If we think from the marketing perspective, it's, there is online content, there are digital webinars, there are ads, there is written content, blogs, and so on. And then there are events. And this is a huge opportunity. What also comes into play is the experience marketing, which I've been really advocating for the past few years, because there is also the community element to it.
Yeah.
And this is what I absolutely love, that mix and the synergy of marketing, of how to position your brand, your company through this experiences that you're creating. But you're not just thinking then about your brand, but about the community and the audience you're creating it for, and what they're going to get out of it, and how to make it beneficial for both parties. And that would really makes it so special for me, because you're really contributing back to people, and that's what essentially helps you to move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess there's a lot of data, kind of looking at data and researching all the different trends and kind of what's resonating with people, which I guess you do in other sorts of marketing roles, but it's just slightly done in a different way because it's for events.
Yeah, 100%. I think also to just go back and clarify a bit deeper the difference between event planning and event marketing. So event planning to me is a lot about the specifics and operations once the idea is already developed and what the end goal needs to be. Then it's just, okay, ticking things off the box, making sure that it actually is going to work, that it is feasible given the location and the physical limitations that there might be, so that everything arrives on time, and so on and so on. So to be a great event marketer, you need to be a great event manager, 100%. And yes, in event marketing, there's that huge piece of pre-planning work where, yes, research and analysis come into play. And equally, a lot of the post-event work where, again, it's all about the data and ensuring how to extend. Event is just one element of the actual event marketing, right? It's just yeah, it's like a culmination, obviously, of the process, but because it's a big thing that actually finally happens, but it's just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, depending on how long it is. But yes, there is that huge process before, and there is a huge process after. And that's what makes it really, really different.
Yeah. And then I guess using that data as well to make the next event
100%.
even better.
Yes, always. Yeah, there is always the feedback loop and the data analysis, and yeah, everything goes into play. And there's this mindset, at least for me, like, it can always be better, even if it was great. There are always things that you can improve or experiment with and try if something will work better the next time.
So, okay, if we go back to how you started off then, so what did you say, the 31st of June?
July, yeah.
July 2014, you made that conscious move to go into events marketing. So what was the first job in that industry, and what was the title of that job as well?
So on July 31st, I started with the job title, I think something like a sales representative. It was not a marketing job, but it was the company where I wanted to move into the marketing department. And I knew that it will be just much, much easier to do internally because I didn't have a prior experience, right? So I had to be an insider, and show my personality and get and move. And that worked out. So 3 months later, I did move into the marketing department. And my first job was event marketing manager for DACH region, which is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
So how did that internal move work? Did you just make it known that that's the area you wanted to work with, or did you kind of wait for a role to become available?
It's both. I definitely did let people know. I was very upfront about that this is my end goal for sure. Okay. And I also was just looking constantly at what's available. And it was a big company, big corporation. So all the roles were first published internally. So you actually got the first look. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it all worked out. There was obviously the interview process and all of it, but yeah, it definitely worked.
And what was your main responsibilities within that role?
I feel like it was almost the same as right now, but no, of course not. Essentially, it was my first role like that. So it was more of the operational side of things, but that role, it was officially was operational. In reality, I was doing everything. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. I got totally burned out by that job. But it was a very helpful experience because we were running 30 events per quarter all over the place, and everything was done remotely except for some. And then we're doing a huge project, running a huge conference. And yeah, there were so many bits and pieces. I learned tons in that job, both about events and working with the team and managing the team, organizing processes, because once you work on such heavy workload and time constraints, you really learn how to be efficient. You learn how to create processes and replicate them, and how to really understand quickly, okay, prioritization, time management, everything. It was like a Girl Scout bootcamp event marketers.
Well, I guess a great place to start off, and especially, how big was the team actually that you were working with there on events specifically?
So for that market, essentially it was just me. And then there would be, obviously directors and managers who were mostly managing. So that was just me. And then there would be sales team and who were supporting on site, like on the field. But we also had other people across other regions who were also in the same position as I was. So we were supporting each other and sharing our experiences. So that was helpful for sure as well.
If we talk about burnout a little bit then, because you said that was quite a heavy workload and you did get burnout from that. How did you handle that burnout?
In that particular case, not really well, I would say. Well, essentially, I quit the job because I tried to make a business case, really showing how hiring another person could benefit the company as a business, because we will do those events much more profoundly. We will have much better event marketing. We will work more on the pre and a post event side of things. But that was not interesting, let's say. And it was quite obvious that things aren't going to change here and at that pace, because I knew the plans for the next year and a half. Like, it was not going to slow down. It was only going to get worse. So
it's always like that, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. So I decided that, that's not going to work. And had a different opportunity potential that I could explore at that point. So very thankful for all the experience, but I decided to part ways with that place. It took me about 2 months to get back, like just physically and mentally get back on track. And since then, I think, I definitely learned what can lead to burnout. I learned it once again at a different place later on. So, but yeah, I think it's, it definitely taught me what the consequences can be if you don't take actions early on. Yeah, because at that point, once you're left with the only one option to quit, that's way too late to start handling things. Like, you really need to recognize it earlier. And nobody is going to take action except for you. Like, no one is going to come and say, oh, it looks like you are going to burn out, so maybe you shouldn't be working that hard. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, really, because I think a lot of people, you just want to do a good job, don't you? So you try your best all the time, but sometimes it doesn't sort of pay off in the long run. And then, like you said, it can take a little while for you to kind of get back into it then. So it's a really tricky kind of balance, I think, of doing a good job, but not overly working that you get to that point.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, doing a good job doesn't mean going completely insane at your job. So when you're leaving your office close to midnight and you're back at the office like at 9 a.m., but also you spend a few hours working at home, maybe you got a lot accomplished, like on paper, check boxes, but did you do it really well? I'm not sure. And that's what the feeling that I had, like, I'm not doing a good job. That was also driving like the perfectionist that I am crazy, because you aren't doing it as good. You could have done that much better. You could have written a much better copy. You could have come up with a much more creative way and structure. You could have done that briefing a week earlier rather than 3 days before the event. So there's so many things, and you just keep beating yourself up for that. So that's a vicious cycle there.
Yeah, definitely. So after that position, you moved on, and tell me about the next role. Kind of, what was that company, and how did the positions differ a little bit there, if at all?
Yeah, so for 1 year actually after that, I spent running my own dance project, because I also dance, and I was teaching and had my classes, which was another exceptional experience, because that was a bit like running your own business on a very small scale, but still, you do marketing, you do the business part of it, the accounting, thinking about different sides of the whole process. And also what I realized during that time, I really miss work. I really miss marketing. I need the scale. I need the international experience. I realized the things that I really want for my career. And I realized, okay, I still love dancing. I still teach and so on, but I'm not turning it into my core business. Sure. And yes, a year later, I started with another company, as well as events marketing manager for German region. That German region haunted me for quite a while, just because I speak German. But then that was the job that really propelled my career, because it's been evolving and growing every year. And I stayed there for 4 years with the company, but every year it was next level and something different. I think that's where I really achieved my vision for what events and experiences should stand for and how businesses should be using them, so that it's not kind of a use and abuse only for its own benefit, but also so it gives back to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's where that combination with the community comes together, really putting a lot of effort in the research and listening to your audience, taking it back and turning it into the right, finding that perfect format of the experience that will serve the purpose and will fulfill those needs for your audience. Also, how to navigate sometimes the internal conversations so that the end result, what you can see, is that experience to remember, is that something that is a meaningful and special memory years down the road for everybody who was a part of it.
I think you absolutely nailed that at Flow, because all of those events are super fun, super memorable. You mentioned about teams. I just wanted to chat about teams for a minute. Managing teams across time zones, how do you do that?
It's definitely has its certain challenges, and you just need to adjust to that. I guess I was lucky enough to take it as a norm because I've always worked across different markets and with people based in different countries. So I never had a situation when everybody you work with are at the same office in the same time zone ever in my life. It has always been very distributed, but I can imagine it can be quite something new. I think the key things there are understanding what are your overlapping hours. You really need to have overlapping hours. I think it doesn't work when you are so far across the time zones that you can't have at least 3 hours a day when you are wide awake and actually working, and not, brushing your teeth, and that's when someone else starts working. So to me, up to 6 hours difference, that works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's important to be realistic about it. Otherwise, if someone is forced to work on very irregular, abnormal hours, I don't think it's sustainable in the long run. People have their routines. People need to have social life. They have families, obligations, and so on. If someone says, no, it's fine, I will be waking up at 3 p.m., I will work until midnight, it will work for some time, but it will end. And we're here in the long run. I think that's another part of approaching it. Managing any team you want to be in for a long run, not for 3 months, not even for a year. The second thing, obviously, when you're not at the same office, you're not even in the same country or same time zone, it's a lot about the trust and understanding that these people here are for a reason, and you trust them, and you know they will make the right decisions when needed. Also, we're working in a different market, so people who are in that market, they will know best. They are the ones who are the experts. And I believe it's very important to understand it and sometimes repeat to yourself as a mantra every day that these people know better than you do. And you hired them for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, sometimes there can be situations when you have certain experience that you can recommend something based on your learnings or on your knowledge of how the industry works, how business works, but also always listening and always thinking that, okay, they know better and you trust them to make these right decisions. And the third thing that was very, very important for me, especially given that particular company, for example, there was a lot of information going on within the company. And it was important for me that nobody feels left out or that they don't know. So I saw my role in many ways at ensuring everybody has equal access to exact same information at the same time. So there's no feeling like, oh, they knew about it, I didn't know about it. Why is that? So really making sure that everyone is in the know, and also keeping up that team spirit anyway. So I was, and I'm still adapting a lot of techniques from Scrum and from Agile. So daily stand-ups, weekly brainstorms, retrospectives, maybe on a regular basis, once in a month, or definitely after major projects. That definitely helps to have that team exchange and really encouraging team also to talk to each other, collaborate, and just also have a chat on Slack, for example. That's what I've been using always, where you can share, ask a question, and know that people will get back to you, even if it's an odd hour or a weekend or something like that. So the team takes priority over everybody else within the company.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it, because if your team's happy, the results are definitely going to be better. So you've got to nurture that and, make sure that everyone knows what they need to do, where to find the information, and, enjoy what they're doing as well. So
yeah.
no,
I mean, obviously also holding accountable, because like with that freedom and kind of, okay, you know what you're doing, but also comes the responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. What the results would be.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you look for in someone when you are hiring for someone on your team?
Above everything else is communication and just the ability to find common language, negotiate, agree on something with anyone. I feel like hard skills can be taught. If you don't know something, you can learn it. But communication skills, you can't teach it.
Yes.
Or it will take quite a while. And still, no, it's definitely not, at least not the business we're in, where we can spend a year learning how to communicate with people. No, there's so many situations, there's so many things, so many people you need to work with. You just need to know how to respond, how to get what you need, finding different styles, adjusting your style based on the person who you're talking to. I feel like in this area, creating events, experiences, working with people every single day, internally and externally, communication is above everything else.
Mm-hmm. So let's go on to Pixelz, where you work right now.
Yes.
What, I guess, give me a top line overview of your sort of day-to-day in Pixelz.
Day to day, I think for the past 2 years, there hasn't been a day when I wasn't thinking about flow. So I sometimes, I think I almost force myself. I know, okay, I need a week not thinking about flow, because then, you need your brain to reset and freshen up a little bit to come up with better ideas and come up with something more creative, rather than, okay, that's a routine one after another. But on a given day, there will always be a call with, except for Fridays, call with Julia, who works with me. And that's this daily stand up, because we're based at different offices, same time zone, but different locations. So it's great to just catch up on projects, what's going on, any news from my end, from her end, any decisions that we need to make, move forward, discuss questions, just catch up. And then there would be, I feel like at Pixelz, compared to many other companies I worked with, we have fewer regular meetings, which is great. It leaves more space to actually work. We have much quieter, I think, some of the communication channels, which again, at first felt weird. Do people even talk here? But then, okay, it's just been previously was a lot of communication going on. So you don't actually get any work done during your work hours.
Yeah.
And there are different projects in progress at the same time. So as much as it's not about multitasking, I think, but it is about different projects. And so you focus on this thing, but you also need to make sure that some of the others move forward. And it's all about the priorities and timelines and what needs to be done. But almost every day, yes, it's thinking about flow and different aspects of it. I'm always on the lookout for what are the top topics for the industry, what's top of mind. So I look through articles and business of fashion, any other resources on LinkedIn, what people are talking about, what seems to be that trending point of interest, talking to people, sometimes running some interviews. We run webinars as well, so that's a great source of inspiration as well. If I see someone posting something interesting on LinkedIn, I'll definitely save it and save the profile, connect with the person. So that's how you grow your network, listening to podcasts. So I think that happens on the background every single day to make sure that we get the best for Flow.
Yeah, definitely. What are those pre-event tasks? Like you said, connecting with people and sort of coming up with the themes and trending topics, but exactly what sort of goes on in those pre-event days?
Pre-event months.
No.
I'd say months, yes.
How long actually does it take you to plan just one event?
It's we have moved, from since I joined, because before that it was okay. One event ends, the next one starts, and that puts you in a very tough position of very limited time. So we have moved into the cycle of when planning kind of happens at the same time, it's just a different level of intensity. So, for example, now Flow Europe will take place in October. So the planning for that has slowly started still in February when we were checking out the venue, and we knew the dates for that as well, even earlier, like back in December. That's when we mapped it out. But of course, the full-on intensity started in May, like after end of April and in May, because also we tested a new format at 2 days. So we wanted to see how that goes in North America, what we can learn from feedback and listening to people, what are the points that we can improve, what we definitely keeping. So that's when we go full force. So a lot of time in the beginning of May was spent on interviews, studying the feedback and so on, to plan, okay, what the content should be. And then of course, first comes always the content, what topics we want to cover, what is the overarching theme. And then comes, okay, who is the best person in the industry right now to cover this particular topic. And that's when the speaker recruitment starts. And at the same time, there is promotion and how we go about that. And then working with our partners who are a big and important part of Flow as well. And how do we make sure that their participation is beneficial both for them, but also for the audience and for the event in general. So all of these things are happening in parallel. And obviously then the attendees and communication and invitations, making sure that we communicate the right thing at the right time to everyone, and to get on the plan, on the calendars. After COVID, for example, the planning cycles were much shorter and people would make decisions later and closer to the event date. And it's been changing, but now I think it got a little bit for a longer cycle. People start making plans for longer timelines. So it is important for us to communicate early on the dates so people can put it on the calendar, especially now that we are luckily in a position to see many, many repeat attendees that are coming back to our events. We want to make sure they can make it work and come to the event.
Amazing. So yes, that is a ton of work to do to set it up originally. And then when you're actually at the event, so the ones that I've been to have been 1-day events, but obviously you now have this new format with the 2-day events. So what is it on those days that you're doing, you and Julia? What are the main tasks you're doing on the days? Because I feel like you both somewhat just kind of blend in and it all just kind of works. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure there's a
We just
ton more.
move so fast that we blend in and you can see us.
Yeah, but it just seems kind of like effortless and everything just moves from one thing to the next. So what is the work to make sure that it happens that way?
It's definitely the planning down to a minute, and the whole day is planned down to a minute.
Okay.
And you yourself know, as a speaker, you've seen a little bit of the behind the scenes
Yeah.
and know the scheduling and that we run the rehearsal. But also now, especially with the 2-day format, so there is a setup day. There's always a setup day the day before, so that the venue actually looks the way it looks when people come in. All the setup making sure everything works. And before that, yes, there is a schedule for plan A, but there is also a plan B and plan C. And what if this goes wrong? And what if this happens? So there always needs to be a plan and understanding what needs to happen. What are the critical aspects? And timing is critical. That's one thing I've learned still from my sports days and running sports events. Like when you have 500 participants and everybody starts within a 30-second or 1-minute interval, that's actually a full day of people coming to the starting line and leaving with exactly 1-minute interval. One delay of 30 seconds ruins the whole day.
Yes,
so I learned it back then, and it's one of the most important things for me is to run things on time. That's what really holds it all together. As soon as you start losing the schedule, that's when everything goes bust. So that's why I was like, oh, it feels like an army. It's not an army. It's just it's a good schedule. And that's why it is so important. Then it flows. So what we do, the setup day, making sure everything is in place, AV is running, everything, sound, video, lights, all the spots are set up. And then on the day, we are usually not usually, we're always the first ones at the venue, depending on when we're allowed, usually around 6:30 a.m. Honestly, that's my favorite time of the day. Apart from, I love the event, but I just love that moment when I walk into the venue, the lights are still not on, and you just hear that sound of you walking through the venue, and you just feel, okay, everything is set up. It looks great. It's such a moment of calm before the storm.
Yes, it's like that anticipation for what will be in that day.
Yes, 100%. And I absolutely love those moments. So I always love to be the first one at the venue. So we do another check that everything works. And then, the AV team arrives, they do another check that everything works. Then the rest of the marketing team arrives, making sure check-in is set up. And then the rest of the team arrives and the speaker arrive, and we do the rehearsal, and then we're ready to open the doors. And you would normally find me at the back, just making sure the show runs smooth and every speaker goes up on stage at the right time, that everything runs correctly from the AV perspective, because so I do play a role of the producer on the day. And Julia makes sure that everything else runs perfectly, so that the food is warm on time and the drinks are served and everything else, whatever resets of the furniture, for example, that need to happen in other rooms, that they happen on time. We always communicate, we have our WhatsApp chat. We always make sure that everything is ready a few minutes before the next part of the program is supposed to start.
Yeah, sure. And then those post-event days, obviously you send around like surveys to kind of gather that feedback, but what else is done in those days to help you set up for the next one?
There's definitely also part of our internal team retrospective, and sometimes we do it as an online meeting with a whiteboard. Sometimes it will be a survey that we send out, because our team sees a lot and also sees it from different perspective.
Yes,
so everyone has a very different point of view in the event, and what I see, what I notice is very different from the experience someone else has, just also because I don't see some parts of the event at all. So every single feedback is important, and all the ideas are always welcome. Therefore, also we take so seriously the feedback survey from the attendees, and I really hope that people see how we aim to implement some of those suggestions and act upon them, not just, oh, well, thank you, but we'll carry on as we used to. We really do our best and think about how to integrate it and how to implement it. So thank you to everybody who has filled out the survey after these events. And then obviously there are photographs and there are videos and there are recordings of all the sessions, which need to be edited and uploaded, because we aim to share them within 2 weeks after the event, also with all of the attendees, but also people who couldn't make it to the event. So they get that value still and can actually watch the content that has been shared, and then takeaways from discussion groups. So there's a lot of content that's still being produced. I think for about 2 or 3 weeks after every event, there's still a lot that we are sharing also in our social media or via email, just to make sure that everyone gets access to what was shared during flow. And so, because event is one day, but there is so much that can be shared.
Yeah, the content kind of lives on, isn't it?
Yes.
And then
Yeah,
people who don't
100%.
know you today can still view it in, months' time because someone else has recommended that they watch something or they've seen it on social media or whatever. And I think that's a really good point as well. And that's a great way to kind of keep that buzz around the events as well.
Yeah, and it's about delivering the value
Yes,
to the community. We want
exactly.
to make it accessible. It's not about gatekeeping it. It's about sharing the knowledge that we brought to flow. Also, with so much effort that goes into bringing and creating each session at flow, and you as a speaker know it, and keeping enhancing that process to make it even more worthwhile, to get it even more interesting and valuable. Each content, it just makes total sense to share it more and share it widely.
Definitely. And all of the events I've noticed that you have been doing with Flow have been free events, which I think is brilliant. I know there's other events which you've got to pay a lot of money to attend. What was the decision to make them free? Is it just to, provide that information to everyone? Because like you're saying, it's about building the community. And is it always going to be that way, do you think?
So I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say anything about the future. That's so far for brands and retailers, for in-house studios. Yes, it is free.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is about building community, and I think in some other industries, and I used to work in different industries, in digital marketing and digital transformation, virtualization. There is in some industries there is a culture of events, I would say, and there are a lot of conferences, a lot of trade shows, and just happening all the time. So there is certain like, we pay for the ticket. There is a budget for that within the companies, but not in the e-com creative industry. There are almost no events. So like it will only get even harder for people to attend if there is also a price tag, because even I know that sometimes getting time off kind of to go to an event is already an issue, and you need to make a business case for why it matters. So making it even harder,
Yeah.
that doesn't go along with building the community.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes total sense. I think for me, just like I've been in the industry for almost 10 years, and I've kind of seen it evolve because when I started out, it was very separate and you only know what's kind of going on in your company. And then obviously you do get the people who swap companies and kind of bring learnings from elsewhere, but no one really mingles with the other companies. But I feel like that is changing, which is obviously partly to do with Flow, I think, but a couple of other, different brands that
Yes.
all the studios work with are starting to put on these events and kind of, not gatekeep anymore, just let everyone kind of share and build that community and everyone kind of
Yeah.
learn from each other. And I think that's really great. And it's nice to have that kind of support network as well of people who actually know what it is that you do all the time.
Yeah, and that you actually have the possibility to go to
Yeah.
the events, that they actually happen. So that definitely helps, and I'm very happy to see that yes, more companies start to put on different type of events. Some more of a technology focus, they're more of a meetup, a conference. That's great because it gives exposure to that. Okay, events
Yeah.
are a thing in this industry as well. You can go to them, you can learn something, you can meet people, and that just becomes more of a norm, I would say,
Hmm.
rather than, oh, there's an event once a year, so going or not sure if it's a valuable thing at all.
Yeah. And you do webinars as well, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
kind of the difference with planning and putting on a webinar as opposed to an in-person event?
So obviously with in-person events and online, I think the key difference is, while in-person event has a huge portion of content, which is extremely important and it must be valuable, it must be useful, the in-person connections will always take priority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the in-person events are for, and that's what they're about. There used to be, and well, there still are some events that just make a agenda full of sessions and leave about maybe an hour in total during the day to actually talk to people. That's not the right way. That's not what the in-person event is about. It's about meeting people in person. So you need to give enough time to connect, to talk to each other and learn from each other as well. So we aim at at least 50%, sometimes 60% balance towards the networking time, and whether it's curated and some of the interactive discussions, or it's just a free-flowing networking. But since we bring very specific audience to these events, pretty much everybody you talk to, that's the right person to talk to. So that's another beauty of the small scale event. You can really tailor your audience, and then you don't need to worry to make sure that, oh, well, I spent 10 minutes talking to that person who's completely irrelevant for me because they work in a different industry, in a different area, and so on. That what happens at big conferences. No, when you keep the audience small and tight and it's very tailored, whoever you talk to, you can learn something, you can get to know someone very interesting. When it comes to the online events, especially right now, again, I was doing a lot of them during the pandemics. I did the full, like a 5-day long and the 12-hour live streams and so on. So now it's all about short and specific. So if we do a webinar and we do them once a month, it is about very particular topic and what value we can deliver. And we continuously also look into the data and research and analyze what it is that our audience wants to hear from us. And it's always about innovation, it's about trends, it's about technology, about some new hot topics. And one thing that we also learned, that in an online format, what works best is that conversation. So you can listen to it in the background. You can be in a different tab, but you can still listen to something that people are saying. So we tend to stick to the conversational format, sometimes showing some visuals to illustrate or showcase very specific examples. And for example, at Flow, and you might see the evolution of our sessions as well, the best performing sessions are always the keynotes that have visually rich slides, that have interesting design and a lot of videos. So, because when you're in person among other people, the focus is better on one person presenting with the slides. However, online, actually, it's very hard to focus on a talking hand showing some slides. So it goes vice versa here as well. Yeah, and obviously, I mean, in-person event, it's a huge and long cycle of planning, and webinars are faster turnaround, still about a month in the planning. And we also try different formats, trying to keep things interesting, not the same thing all over again, but adding little spin to it, some gamification. Sometimes we spin the wheel, sometimes we give very limited time to our presenters to share what they have to say. So really trying to keep things interesting and engaging.
Yeah, mix it up all the time. So just before we finish up, I feel like you've given a lot of tips for experience marketing. And I mean, I've learned tons already that I didn't necessarily expect would be involved in that role. But for someone who wants to start out in experience marketing, what are your top 3 tips that you would give them?
Be very intentional about why you want to go in this job. It is not the easiest one. You will always have deadlines, and people who have never worked under deadlines, like real ones, if you don't do this by this time, this is not going to happen. Like, that sort of deadline. It's not artificial because, oh, well, let's ship this product or something by that. No, it's got to be done. It will always be there, pretty much. Never ending deadline. Your life is a never ending deadline, essentially. Also, there will be long hours, there will be travel involved. If you work with a different time zone, sometimes you put the event in Australia and in the US at the same time. And it means that your work hours are very irregular. You need to be fine with that. And you actually need to find certain level of joy in having, sometimes you work at 9 p.m. sitting on a container somewhere in a back room, and you need to actually have, find it really fun and interesting rather than staying every day at the office. So really think twice about it. Second, if you go event marketing, experience marketing, it's not just event planning. It's not about managing logistics and operations. No, it's thinking bigger. It's being strategic partner to the business. You need to understand how business runs. You need to understand marketing. You also need to know how to manage events and you need to be detail oriented, but it's so much bigger. And this needs to take priority, and that's what will make you successful. Otherwise, maybe event management is a better career if you prefer the operational side of it. And then you truly need to love people and be curious about them, because you can't fake it. You really need to be sincerely and genuinely happy to see those people coming to your events, and you need to want to talk to them, to learn from them and listen to them. And I think this what has been such an amazing thing in every industry I've been in. But it was the people I work now and I get to meet at every flow event. It's really a delight, and it's such a pleasure to see everyone and learn from everyone. So you can't fake it. You need to have that inner curiosity and love for communication and people.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening to Get to Know. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Aleksandra. I loved getting a glimpse into events marketing and hearing directly from her what goes into an event before, on the day, and afterwards. Did you find this interesting too? If you did, I'd really appreciate you leave a review, rate, and subscribe. If you want to learn more, follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the Get to Know Podcast, and I'll catch you the same time next week, where I'm getting to know Rob Daniels, a freelance content creator. We talk about TikTok, what goes into making great content, and what all of those different buzzwords mean. If you're looking to get into content creation, you won't want to miss this one.